your local park, you're sitting on the bench when someone kicks you on the foot. You don't know him, he's about your age, but you're in his yard and he wants to know why. And he's got a knife. You're now on your feet. You feel a pressure on your jacket and then it's through. It's right through. Just like that. No rhyme, no reason, no time to say goodbye. You're just dying. Don't blame the knife. Blame the person who held it, your attacker. Let's call him Dick. Dick's not the same as you. He's been seen. He's now in a police station, in a cell. He's a child again, as perhaps he always was. And he's crying for his mum. He's not the same as you. He rarely sees his dad, and when this man comes to the house, he usually wants some money which his mum doesn't have, and his mum normally takes a beating. So his mum comes to the station. She sees you in the cell. She's angry with her son, Dick. And she leaves him there to contemplate what he's done with his life. And what about you? You're in the hospital. The surgeon and her team are doing their best to save your life. But there are tears in their eyes as they watch your life slipping away. There'll be more tears before the day is out. Dick never had much. His family have been poor forever. There's no food on the table. He's been excluded from school. Everybody's on his back and his mum just sits there watching repeats of Gogglebox. What's he to do? He can't stand it anymore. You know the story. He leaves. He joins a gang. He knows what they do. They buy drugs, they sell drugs, but he's not worried by that. Most of them have weapons. And he sees what some of them also have, just some of them. The new trainers, the designer clothes, the new watches. And they show him something which they're clever. They show him something which he thinks is respect. But they're his peers. But they're not his friends. And you, at 15, are dead. We know why we have knife crime in the United Kingdom, don't we? It's usually defined with two words, social deprivation, and all that means. No job opportunities, poor housing, debt, all those kinds of problems. And if you don't think it's like that, just read a recent report out a few days ago from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation into poverty in the United Kingdom. It tells some terrible tales about the state of our inner cities. Read them. It's a terrible indictment of us all. And then there's the suffering, the anxiety, the mental health problems, the self-harming, the substance abuse, criminality, all sorts of things from... There's no end to it. If you want to know more about that, go onto my website, Fighting Knife Crime London. Play some of the videos there from organisations like the Ben Kinsella Trust. I put one on there yesterday from them. Play that to anyone who's thinking about holding a knife and tell them to think again. Our failure, my failure, your failure is the reason why we have knife crime and drugs. Many of those young people are talented young people who could have been so different. Their lives could have been so different if we hadn't been so indifferent towards them. Of course, anyone who uses a knife, threatens anyone with a knife, has to receive punishment, get the punishment they deserve. But why does it have to be like that? Why does it have to be like that at all? Why do we erect barricades in our minds rather than trying to find different solutions to their lives? And I know about this because my whole life has been spent in criminal justice, talking to these people, talking to the victims, talking to the offenders. I've been a prosecutor, then a defender, and then for 34 years of my 51 years as a criminal lawyer, I've been sitting as a judge part-time in the Crown Court, trying cases of this kind where young people have lost their way. And I've been dealing, it occurs to me, with just one thing all that time. One thing, and that is failure. Just failure. So I decided to do something for the rest of my life about that. I decided to build a one-stop resource of information for everybody in London who needed help, all young people, all children who needed guidance and help. It's not just a directory, borough by borough, of organisations across London. It's a magazine, it's the depository of public resources of information, reports of all kind. It's full of podcasts, videos, webinars. It's about everything I could do. Public information, apps, safety apps, access to these things to save the lives of young people across London. But as I was doing this, I learnt some pretty appalling things. I looked at a couple of the reports before I loaded them, one from the YMCA and the other from Action for Children, and I learnt that 73% of our youth services have been disbanded between the years 2010 and 2019. 73%. Now join the dots. 10 days ago, less than that, the Office of National Statistics issued their report on homicides in England. Last year, up until June, we had the highest rate of deaths at the point of a knife since records began in 1946. It is that serious. Hard, isn't it? Hard. So let's talk about something else. Let's talk about butterflies, those beautiful little things that spend most of their life cocooned away from all these problems. They know nothing about these problems, and then they burst into life for 2 or 3 weeks, the burst of quite transcendent beauty. I haven't gone off my rocker. It's the chaos theory, you see. How many of you have wondered if you hadn't been somewhere, seen someone, had a certain conversation, heard something, how your life might have been different? How, if that hadn't happened, your life wouldn't have been changed, it wouldn't have taken the same path. Many of you will know the old Chinese proverb. It's the flapping of the wings of the butterfly that can be heard on the other side of the earth. Well, that's it today. I want you to do a little flapping. I want you to start a little breeze. Go from one person to the next, and then to the next, and then bring about a hurricane of change. What sort of change do we want? Well, I want you to blow the world apart with your compassion for each other. Let's stop social media trolling, where all of us kind of think of the worst of people rather than the best when we get onto social media. Something happens to us. Why do we do it? Let's blow the world apart with care for our communities, for the people in it. Think about what we can do to make that community better rather than just complaining about the way it is. None of us are angels, though. So how do we do this? Well, we have to be a little practical, don't we? So let's start with respect. Just an example. Do you think that asking for tougher punishments for offenders is a way to show respect to the victim? Do you really think that is the way to do it? Governments say, don't they, tough on the causes of crime. How many times have we heard that? The trouble is with that phrase, tough on the causes of crime, it forgets the word reason, and respect gets lost. Because we all know the cause, don't we? I said it a moment ago myself. The cause is social deprivation, a nice little abstract term which you don't need to engage with unless you want to. It's just a statement of the status quo, social deprivation. But ask the reason, not the cause. And it becomes rather personal, doesn't it? And it starts with the word we. We have failed. We could have done better, but we didn't. So was it just Dick who killed? Or didn't we, just a little bit, have something to do with that? Well, we're getting there. We're starting to flap, but we've not yet learned how to fly, have we? Governments produce reports. I read them all the time. 10-year plans. Yes, they're full of recommendations. They're full of undertakings. Some things that even get put into effect. But 10-year plans, do they get put into effect? But they depress me. They depress me because they are missing three things every time I read them. They miss a vision of how we should grow as a society. They miss the responsibility that you and I, each of us, hold to the other person. Why should we talk about rights unless we accept that we have responsibilities as well? And the last thing, perhaps, is the most important thing of all. Recommendations and undertakings, whoever they're made by, are completely uninformable. They mean absolutely nothing. But the people who make them very often are the lawmakers. They have the power to put the power of legislation behind the recommendations that they make, so that if they're not fulfilled, someone can do something about it. But does that ever happen? It does not. What we do is we throw short-term fundings at these problems, don't we? Like a chemist dishing out sticking plaster. But think about it. Every penny spent upon a child can be a saving to the National Health Service, to the police force, to the criminal justice system, to our schools, to our sense of well-being when we just walk around the streets. The cost-benefit of spending a penny on a child outweighs the result of doing nothing. So where does the duty of government lie in this? Surely it's to make sure that those organisations that show that they can succeed never lose their funding, that the youth workers that have worked with such experience over so many years perhaps are not put out of work, that we don't return to the situation we had between 2010 and 2019 with our youth services being wiped out and us being left now with people dying on the streets. Saving a life now not only saves that life now, but it saves lives for the future too. So let's be dead butterflies that just flutter to the earth. Let's show our colours. Let's flap our wings and stir the air around us a little bit. Just dream a little. One of our partners is the Desmond Tutu Foundation. Archbishop Desmond Tutu had this to say. I'm not interested, he said, in crumbs of compassion thrown from the table of those who consider themselves my master. I want the whole menu. So, that menu must include, must it not, our aspirations for the young. It must include action. It must include enforcement of laws. It must include listening to the voices of the young and hearing the voices of the young, as I hope we will hear the voices of you when you leave this hall today. Young people are the seed corn of our future. They form the character. You form the character of our future generations. Are schools there to build broad minds, to teach us good citizenship? Or is the only measure we value examinations? Why do we prefer punishment to finding solutions all the time? Why is that the rhetoric that we always read? Of course, people must be punished, but do it quickly. Make more police officers on the ground if that's what's necessary. Get these cases investigated and brought into court. But at the moment, what do we see? People wait years for justice, whether they are accused or whether they are the victims. And that's not justice at all. In very many cases, it is the complete opposite and can amount to a crime itself. Why do we criminalise low-level offending in young people too? Why don't we just divert them into another activity, give them hope, and don't criminalise them, send them into their world at the start of their lives with criminal convictions? That has been shown to be a poor way of doing things, and as a policy, it has simply failed. Let's help all young people into work. Let's give them mentors. Let's send them into the arts. Let's send them into places where they can play sport. Give them the music of opportunity in their lives. Let's take down those barricades. Our young people don't need to die. Some of you will know, many of you will know the musical Les Misérables. You know what that stands for. It stands for the poor, the wretched. And you know how it ends, that drum beat. Will you join in our crusade? Will you be strong and stand with me? Beyond the barricades, there is a world you'd love to see. Say, do you hear the distant drum? It is the future. It is the future that they bring when tomorrow comes. And so when you leave this hall, what will you be asking for your future? What little thing will you do? Just a little thing. And if each of you does that, it won't just be one life that is saved. It could be many. Thank you very much.